Good afternoon, guys. So this is the follow-up video to those who have watched my video on the Generac pressure washer walk-around. In that video, I had stated that when I received the unit, the gas tank had quite a large dent in it. Generac stepped up to the plate, really came through for me, and was able to send me a replacement gas tank. Unfortunately, I did not come without issue. Initially, they had sent me a detergent tank by accident. So I emailed them, they were quick to respond, and then were able to send me out the gas tank. However, the gas tank was sent to the wrong address in New Jersey. So I emailed them again, let them know when I tracked it on FedEx's website that in fact it was delivered in New Jersey, not to my location. So once again, no issue. They said they'll fix that, and they overnighted me the gas tank once again to the proper address, which I received today. So I've cut open the box. Now I'm ready to open it to see what's included inside, which should be the gas tank, we're hoping. So we'll pull that out. Apologize for stopping the video. I don't have a tripod for my iPhone, so I'm having to put the phone down every time I want to use two hands, so I do apologize. So we do have the replacement fuel tank, and I am happy to see that it came with the gas cap as well as the breather valve, so I'm very happy about that. I don't have to worry about transplanting the old one over. Not that it would have been that hard to do anyways, but still makes life a little bit easier. So we'll take it out. Sorry, I'm just gonna drop the camera. So there we got the gas tank. All included. So that's looking good. So now what the next step is, I'm going to be removing the old one from the machine and installing this one. So that's where we'll continue the video next. Okay, so here we are at the machine. Once again showing the dent in the gas tank when I received it. So now I'm going to be showing you what's required to remove and reinstall the fuel tank. So first we'll remove the spray handle, spray nozzle, to give us a little more room. And I'm going to show you where the different screws are and bolts. There's 3 total. So what we'll do is we'll look over here. And if you look under here on the right hand, or if you're behind the unit, the left hand side of the machine, you're going to see there's 2 nuts here. Now the threaded studs are welded onto the fuel tank. They pass through the supports here, and then the nuts go on here. I've already loosened them up so they're finger loose, so we can take those off. So I'll just remove these 2. They are a 10mm nut, if memory serves me correct. Now there's another, when I initially was trying to take it off, I removed those, and I said there has to be something on the other side, but I couldn't find it. And trying to lift the fuel tank, definitely was apparent there was something there. So now what we have to do is we come to the other side of the machine. I'll turn the machine a bit to the side. And if we look on this side of the machine, you could see there's a bolt. Sorry about that, I'll let the camera focus. There's a bolt there. You're going to see there's 2 of them. The one you remove is the one down here. This one over here is attaching a bracket for the throttle body, or the bracket for the carburetor that the throttle plate attaches to. And the one you want to remove that anchors the fuel tank is there. Sorry about the darkness in the video. But there you can see the 2 of them. This is on the right-hand side of the unit when you're standing behind it. So you're going to want to remove that. That one as well as a 10mm. But you're going to need a wrench to get in there. Hey guys, I'm just going to put a little more light on the situation so you can better see the 2 bolts that are there and the one that you need to remove. A little correction, I had stated it was a 10mm as like the other ones were on the other side, but in fact it's an 8mm. I found the best way is to use a wrench to get inside there. You could either use the ratcheting if you have a ratchet wrench, or you could use the open end. It is a bit of a longer bolt, so it's gonna take you a little bit of time to get out, but it's not that complicated. Okay, so now the bolt is removed from the back. As you can see, that's the length of it there. That's where it went, it's been removed. So after that, your next step is you're going to want to remove the clamp on the breather hose from the breather valve. To do so, I like to use a pair of linesman pliers to pinch it. You could use needle nose. You could use whatever tool you feel most comfortable with. I like using linesman. So we're going to loosen up that clamp, slide it back, and remove the breather hose. So we just come here with our linesman. We're going to squeeze it together, and we're going to slide it back down the hose. So it's no longer putting pressure on the nipple of the valve. And then the hose could just be slid off and disconnected. Now, the other hose that needs to be disconnected is underneath the fuel tank, which would be your fuel line. So if we lift the gas tank up and remove it from its bracket, and we look underneath, we could see the fuel line is connected there with the same style of clamp. So you're going to have to go in there. This case, probably needle nose or long needle nose pliers are going to be needed in order to be able to access under there, as the space is limited. And we're going to remove that and slide the fuel hose off. Okay guys, well, change of plans. Because the space is very limited under the fuel tank to unclamp the hose, I'm able to get the clamp off, but I'm unable to pull the hose off the plastic nipple that goes into the gas tank. It has a bit of a barb on it, and I'm just not able to get in there properly to yank it off, and I don't want to miss and damage one of the linkage springs for the carburetor and the idle. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the shrouding from around the carburetor so we could disconnect the fuel line directly from the carburetor, which will allow us to pull the gas tank out as an assembly with the hose, and then pull the hose off there. So to do that, we're going to look onto the air cleaner housing. There's a clip over here and one on the other side. You basically just take your fingers, pull it up and apart, and then you wiggle it off and it comes off. As you can see, there's your breather hose coming through. You can leave it hanging there. Foam air filter. Then looking into here, we're going to have 2 screws that attach the top portion to the carburetor. So we're going to remove those 2 screws and get them out of the way. So you see 1 and 2. So once the 2 screws are removed from up top, we're then going to have to remove the 2 nuts that are on the side. These are both 10mm. You're going to have to use a socket and ratchet to get in there, because unfortunately the way the plastic is made, even if you put an open-end wrench on it, you won't be able to turn it. So just by taking your ratchet and socket, 10mm, once again, you're able to remove that. As you can see here, the air filter housing, breather housing, is been removed from the carburetor. So now we can see into the carburetor, where you can make all your adjustments. There's the mounting studs for the housing, as well as the gasket. So now we have very ample access to disconnect the fuel line from the carburetor. Then, as you can see, snakes underneath the carburetor linkage and goes onto that nipple underneath the fuel tank. So that'll be my next step. Removing the clamp just like the other ones, using your linesman pliers, needle nose, your weapon of choice. Loosen that clamp, slide it back, and you'll be able to pull the hose off of the nipple on the carburetor. Okay, so as you can see now, the fuel line has been removed from the carburetor. Now there's 2 points you're going to want to be careful with. The nuts that hold on the air filter housing also are what keeps the carburetor secured onto the engine. So now the carburetor is loose. You want to be careful not to rattle around too much. There are springs and linkages connected. Especially here, you could see a very fine wire, which is a spring that connects. You want to be very careful around that, as it's delicate when you're removing that fuel line. You definitely don't want to bend it, damage it, break it. So you definitely want to have a lot of respect around this unit when you're doing this job, and make sure not to damage anything. So now we can see the fuel tank has been completely removed. No longer on the unit. And if we look here, we can now see how it's connected. So I'll be able to pull that fuel hose off easier now that the fuel tank is removed. And as well, then I'll reinstall the fuel line back onto the fuel tank before reinstalling it into place. You can see now the fuel line is installed onto the new gas tank. You're going to want to make sure when you install it that you have the hose in the proper orientation. It does have some bends in it. Now I'm sure, it's rubber hose. It could be bent any way it wants. So even if you didn't have it in the proper orientation, you could, squeeze it into where it needs to go. I think it's just easier to keep it the way it was, and that way you're not forcing the hose too much. So now I'm going to drop the fuel tank into place and route the hose back through, so I'm able to attach it onto the carburetor. The fuel line has been reconnected with its clamp put in place. Now there's one part I want to make sure that you guys are aware of, and I didn't show this when removing the gas tank. On those two studs that go through the motor bracket, there are two rubber isolators that basically, or spacers, rubber spacers, isolators, that keep the metal fuel tank off of the aluminum supports. So those have to go in between the fuel tank and the aluminum support. If we look here, you can see here where the studs are as they come through. They're not in their spot yet, but basically you would put the isolator onto the stud, and then you would slide the stud through the bracket here. So that's what I'm going to do now. So now that we have the new fuel tank in place, we're going to want to put back on the air cleaner housing. One thing to keep in mind is there is a rubber hose that connects on over here. So what you're going to do onto the head, which is part of the breather system. So we're going to, when you put the housing back on, you're going to want to make sure this rubber hose fits in its place as well as such. And that will then allow you to push the housing back fully in place. So the two nuts are back on that secure the housing as well as fasten the carburetor onto the engine. Those are hand tight, quite snug, but you don't want to over torque them. Fortunately, I don't have any torque specs. I don't have a repair manual. But you know, if you guys use your good judgment, you don't want to go too hard, but you don't want to leave it too loose either and then have a leak on the carburetor. So once that is done, we're going to put back our two smaller screws that we had taken out from the top part, which was over here. So you got the 1 and 2 holes. So we're going to put those back into place. We want to make sure we don't have any parts left over. It's never a good thing. So we're going to screw those back into place as such. Hand tight. And then the other one. Those are snug. We're then going to take our air filter. We're going to put it back into place the way it was. It's this way. You can tell where the hose was running across it. So that goes into place. And then we're going to take our cover, put it back into place. Easy enough to figure out where it goes as the hose lines up. You're going to push your hose back on to the valve. And then you're going to snap close the air filter housing cover as such, which puts that into place. And then we're going to take our pliers and we're going to put our clamp, hose clamp, back where it needs to go as such. Now what's left is our two nuts on the studs. As I stated, don't forget the rubber isolators. They're back into place. You can see them there, 1 and 2. That's very important. We're then gonna always, one thing I like to do is always put a little anti-seize. Might not be needed. It's not going to be seen cold, salty climates, but still, I always like to put a little anti-seize to make sure that things don't seize up on me, and if I ever have to remove this unit again, it won't give me any headaches. So now that those two nuts are on the studs, we don't want to forget about the third fastener. What I like to do is leave the bolts on the nuts on the studs a little loose, just to give me a little play to make sure I can align this bolt properly. Once again, a little bit of anti-seize on this one as well. I did note upon removing it, when taking off the old gas tank, it was very hard to loosen up, and it was a little seize in there from the factory, believe it or not. So a little anti-seize definitely won't hurt. So we're going to tighten that up. So that completes the install of the fuel tank onto the Generac 6596 pressure washer. Not a hard install, but there were some key factors that we need to keep in mind when doing this job. some key parts and components that we need to keep track of. So now I'm very happy. My brand new pressure washer, which still hasn't been used, now looks new again. And I'm very happy I got that dented fuel tank replaced. And I am extremely happy with Generac, their customer service, and the way they kept their customer happy. I'm saddened to say I can't say the same about the distributor I bought it from, but that's the way things are. So I'm going to be moving on forward, a happy owner. I will be putting up another video later in the summer, so not for quite a few months, detailing my initial impressions of the machine, any issues I've encountered, positives and negatives for you guys to hear about, and for those of you who are interested in purchasing this machine. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Keep your eyes open for new videos. I'll have them coming every so often. Thank you once again.